Hola, me llamo Karina. Hi, my name is Karina.
Hi, my name is Kathy Tran and my native language is Vietnamese. Chào, tên của tôi là Y Phụng.
Hola, me llamo Daniela. Hi, my name is Daniela.
So I was born in Los Angeles, and my parents only spoke Spanish in it because that's all they knew. And then right before I started preschool, they got me a tutor who both taught me how to read in both English and Spanish. So I kind of like started learning English from her, and I would always play Sesame Street, and that's kind of like how I would learn English words. And then in preschool, that's kind of where I learned more. It was just in English, so I kind of just got that, and then I went to kindergarten.
So we met up every day. My teacher would make us read sections from children's book stories, and she would stop us if we were saying something wrong, and she would help us if we didn't know how to say so. So when I started kindergarten, I didn't know English because even though I was born here, my parents didn't know English, so they spoke to me in Vietnamese all throughout when I was growing up. So when I started kindergarten, I had to be in an ESL program.
So I came to the States right before starting elementary school, and I didn't know any English, and I honestly can't remember elementary school all that well because it was all a blur. I was just doing what my teachers were telling me to do, like move this way or go sit over there. Like they would point and gesture what I should be doing. I did have ELL classes for 2 years, first and second grade, and they would just pull us out for some part of the day during the week and just help us like understand our homework or just understand simple words around the classroom. But it wasn't all that extensive from what I can remember, and I have horrible memory, but it was not too extensive. By the time I hit third grade, my mother had actually decided to take English learning classes. So we went to a school for adult education, I guess. It was right behind the Stratosphere, and that's where I learned the bulk of my English. Because I wasn't allowed to be there, but she didn't have a babysitter. She was a single mom with a daughter, and she didn't have a babysitter. She didn't know English, so I would have to sit in the classroom with her. And although it was unfair because I was supposed to be paying for that education, I learned a lot from it. And we both learned English that way together. A lot of the time during my early elementary school years, I was really upset that I sounded different, and my classmates would point that out too. But it's not something. They didn't know it was racism. They didn't know it was different. They just would mention, "Oh, you talk funny," and it wasn't anything in a negative sense. And I think when you get older, you see it negatively. But back then, we were young. We didn't know what race was. So they just said I talked funny, and it did bring me down a little. So by third grade, I understood that I really wanted to perfect my English, and my mother said that we should start speaking English all the time at home. So we did that. And I kind of regret that just because I did lose some of my Spanish, and I think language is a great form of communication, and every single country has a different way of communicating with you, whether it's the tone or the words you use, the speed of the words that you're using. I think it influences the culture a lot. So Spanish, although it doesn't seem like it's a cultural thing, I think Spanish defines a lot of who I am and how I say things and the way I think, which is crazy because the way you think, you wouldn't think it would correlate to your culture, but it does. But I'm very grateful for the American experience and for learning English and for being able to benefit from the language. Both languages have been beneficial in my work. Just because I'm a hospitality student, so you have to know how to communicate with multiple clients, and some of them come from many different countries. It has been a great experience when I go out and I experience other cities. So when I go to conferences and I need to go to a restaurant, and sometimes restaurants down there have Hispanics working for them, and it's great because it's just a language that's all around America. So although I live in Las Vegas and you'd expect a lot of Hispanics to be down here closer to the border, there are so many in Philadelphia and Chicago, so it's benefited me when I've been out of my own state.
think with the help of my tutor that I had in preschool, it was easy because I kind of like already knew, and I was kind of at the same level with like everyone else because we were kind of like learning the same things. But I was just like kind of like learning for the first time because it was all in English. So it was kind of, I feel like I was at the same level with everyone else.
It would have to be going through with my cousin because my cousin and I were in the same program, we went to the same school, and we're the same age. So
that's always
going
nice.
through with her and like being like, you messed up, you know, and then she would laugh at me if I messed up, so that's fun.
Good.
Back at it, it was easy just because I had the extra help from my school, and then I had the adult classes that my mother was taking. I was also very interested in reading, and I think that's where the bulk of my vocabulary came from, because once I learned how to read in English, it was just a fun pastime for me. So for me it was very easy, but I know for my cousins it's been really hard. And the number one reason I believe is because they do try to retain their language, and they retain it by speaking Spanish at home and English at school. The only problem is, I guess, we don't do very well at that. We don't do very well at being able to distinguish between the two, and their vocabulary doesn't grow from that. And I don't know if it's because the books helped me so much, but it's hard for some people. I just had it very easy.
Yeah, I remember like getting a lot of help. I was like one of those better readers. Like once I actually started like I knew learning English, I was one of the better readers. So they would kind of like look at me to be an example, and like they would help me like advance more.
So I had this one very specific teacher. I was in the ESL program for about 4 years, so from kindergarten to 4th grade. It wasn't up until 4th grade that I really understood how the grammar works in English. So in 4th grade, I had a teacher that just teaches everything, and then I had a teacher that only teaches like English. So she taught me everything that I know today. So I would meet up with her like weekly, and we would read stories, so, like all different kinds of stories. So that's how I got to learn it, because she says like it helps and you learn so much faster the more that you read.
So I think teachers were a little confused on how to help ELL students or ESL students. Again, I think it was just the teachers used gestures to help the students that didn't understand English. They would repeat words, but again, I couldn't connect it to a Spanish word because it wasn't a class. It was just a teacher telling me what the word and the object is. So they didn't help as much as I did get from the classes.
I think it's really important. I think it's important just to like know multiple languages. It's always like, I think it's always a good, like for jobs and stuff like that, it's good to be bilingual. So like, and also just like keeping a hold of that heritage. Like my parents like speak a lot of, they barely speak English, so it's always good to help them out and just to like kind of like remember where I came from, remember where they came from, and stuff like that.
It's important to me because it's important to my parents. My mom always told me that just because you're born here and the culture here is different doesn't mean that you have to always conform to what society here is like. So it is very important to my family and I that like I know where we came from.
So I think language is very important, and I think it's important to retain it, just because when you grow older as an adult, you start realizing communication is the most important aspect in your life. Whether it's with your friends or your leadership programs or your work, it is so important to be able to communicate with people. Just because you don't want people to feel lost, you want people to feel welcome. And communication, it creates barriers sometimes that don't necessarily need to be there, and that extra tension or that extra confusion can be cleared up with just learning the simple phrases. So I think it's great to retain that information. I know that although I lost some of my Spanish, I'm really working on getting it back, just because, not only because I'm a hospitality student, but just because, again, it's something I'm very prideful about, and I did come into this world in a Spanish-speaking country, so I would like to retain that.
Yeah, because it's not like, I at least like now looking back at it, I don't think it's like that much different because there's like a lot of similar things, but it's probably because I know it, so it's easy for me. But I don't like remember when I was like in school learning, I didn't think it was hard. I was just like doing what I had to do.
I think it would have been easier if the English language wasn't so hard to learn without like the silent letters and all that stuff.
When I look back at it, it was easy just because I had the extra help from my school, and then I had the adult classes that my mother was taking. I was also very interested in reading, and I think that's where the bulk of my vocabulary came from, because once I learned how to read in English, it was just a fun pastime for me. So for me it was very easy, but I know for my cousins it's been really hard. And the number one reason I believe is because they do try to retain their language, and they retain it by speaking Spanish at home and English at school. The only problem is, I guess we don't do very well at that. We don't do very well at being able to distinguish between the two, and their vocabulary doesn't grow from that. And I don't know if it's because the books helped me so much, but it's hard for some people. I just had it very easy.
I think they're doing good because I remember there was like even in high school there were some kids that would still struggle with it, so they would get that extra help. And I would sometimes visit my baby brother who's in elementary school right now. I would go visit their classroom, and there would be some kids who didn't know any English at all, and he would be like in 3rd grade, and they would still help him out a lot. Like they would have like reading groups, and they would divide up the kids by reading levels, and the ones that didn't know any English got that extra help.
That's good. Thank you. Cool.
I think they're in really good hands. The younger generation now, they learn so much faster than we did back then, so they know how to like use computers and all that. So, and they're already learning like Spanish too. Like I know like my nieces and nephews are already learning like a second language, so I think they're in really good hands.
So ELL classes, I don't know about at the elementary level, but at the high school level, I don't think they're doing any benefit at all. And I say this because one, my cousins, and two, I was student body president at a high school, and so I would walk into these classes to make announcements, and the students didn't understand anything I was saying. And I noticed that all they were given were worksheets, and the instructor would say, "You're just supposed to do the math," or "You're just supposed to do this," and they would just sit there and like try their very best to accomplish their work, but they didn't know necessarily what was supposed to go on the page at all. They didn't read it. The instructor just said, "Just do this," but she didn't teach. You know, she didn't say, when it says describe, you use descriptive words, or you know, you want to use adjectives, and these are what adjectives are in the English language. So I didn't see any teaching. I just saw like, here's the paperwork, get your credit and get out of high school. I don't know about at the younger levels like elementary school and middle school, but I know in high school they do a very poor job in Las Vegas.
Cool. Thank you so much.